If Walmart can't survive, how does the average physician survive in their medical practice? Whether it's a group practice, a solo practice, or you're working for a big conglomerate. So, we're going to talk today about physicians who are feeling overwhelmed because of their finances. And I'm going to bring you back to Business 101, the one thing that is not taught in medical schools that should be taught. We are overwhelmed because we've got all this medical knowledge and we feel that we need to work for someone because we don't know how to open our own practices. So I want to bring up a little bit of fact finding. This was published by the Physician Wealth and Debt Report, and it found that the biggest expense that physicians have is not their practice. It's 18% that goes to bad stocks. So we're taking our extra money, if there is any, which there often is with physicians, some of the highest paid in the world, really, and we're putting it towards bad debt. We're not doing the right thing. That's 18% of our income. Number two, however, is practice issues. So let's look at these practice issues. Part of writing my book, Physician Practice Blueprint, on Amazon is to help young practitioners, but it's also to help those practitioners out there that are all of a sudden feeling overwhelmed a few years into practice, 10 years into practice, 12 years into practice, because the expenses overall have grown. Number one, I will tell you, this is business everywhere. It is not just in medicine. And the job of being a business owner is to figure out how you can reduce the costs that you have or work in a way that makes you more effective. So I've narrowed it down to less than 10 big expenses that every business has, but in medicine, number one, it's employees. Number two, it's paying yourself. Number three, it's software. Number four, it's supplies. Number five, it's time. And number six is just the basic instrumentation and furniture, chairs, whatever, infrastructure that you need in the office. That's 5 to 6 items that anyone can control. You can take a look at those 5, 6 items and see, how can I do better? It is not this huge, overwhelming task. By the way, the 6th one was just rent and mortgage. So all of those things are what every business shares that you can keep an eye on. With medicine also, of course, lots of perhaps medical debt, but that would be the same as if you had a mortgage, a home mortgage, or you were paying off child's educational debt. In your case, it's your debt. So 6, 7 items that you can keep a control of. So what do we need to survive? So beyond looking at every one of those things, there's no reason to be overwhelmed, but you have to look at it as a business person. Look at the staff. I'll just give you one example. You guys can go through your own practices, but look at your staff. Do you need 3 staff members? Do you need a full-time and 2 part-time? Can one person be hired that can do all of these? I'll give you a personal example of mine. When I started, I looked for an office where my rent included all the utilities. I found it. I found it because I looked for it. I was in a multi-specialty office that was on top of a health club. And at the time, all corporate America had these memberships into health clubs. So it gave me new patients every day with no added expense, a built-in crowd. You can likewise look at sharing an office with another professional and work out a deal where you pay them something extra, but you don't have to pay the utilities and all these other expenses. So that's number one. That's just one example that's given in the book. Reducing staff. You take out only what's left over and you don't put it into stocks. Likewise, the book goes through every single thing. How can you do it better? So how can a physician survive, and how can you work for yourself? This channel is devoted to you working for yourself. It's very doable. I will also emphasize that if you work for yourself, you cannot be fired, right? So On previous videos, I've talked about the 3-year rule. The reason physicians are being hired for 3 years is after 3 years, you become more expensive and a new graduate becomes less expensive. Your malpractice goes up. You may have good and bad reviews. You have bonuses that are costing a company or a multi-specialty group that they don't have to pay to hire somebody else. That's the 3-year rule. If you own your own practice after 3 years, you've learned to be more efficient by following certain rules and by reducing your expenses. So even if at the 3rd year you go into your own business, it is well worth it. So I hope that this helps. Number one, just knowledge that 18% of your costs are going into bad debt. The next highest expense is practice issues, which are not overwhelming. There's 6 and 7 items that you can control. And Walmart, by the way, getting back to our original question, Walmart can't do it because, number one, they are not physicians. They cannot control their own future. They are hiring physicians whose businesses they do not know, and they think just by reducing costs overall, they can somehow run a better practice. They shuttered 51 of their clinics. That's all of their clinics this year because they cannot and do not know how to run a medical practice. Same with CVS. Optum, the biggest employer of physicians, is making cutbacks as well. What this tells us is you have to look at the world differently. You have to look at it at the best people that to run their own practices are the physicians themselves. Big corporations do not know how to run a medical practice. That's what I would take away from that headline. So I hope that helps. And I'm here for everyone who wants to practice independently as a medical practitioner.